Rimuru, the hero copycat by RimuruEdward6. Hawks Pav. The city stretched out beneath me as I glided through the cool evening air, my wings cutting effortlessly through the wind. Patrols had been quiet tonight, but something in the back of my mind told me it wasn't going to stay that way for long. Sure enough, my earpiece buzzed. "Copycat here," came Rimuru's familiar voice, calm and precise as always. "Go ahead," I said, angling myself toward the direction her voice came from. "This mission, I've got an assistant helping me out with extra data," she said. "The situation's urgent. 7 kilometers ahead, there's going to be a big explosion in the shopping district. It's being set up by 13 people disguised as civilians." I frowned, my wings flaring slightly to slow my descent. 13. That's a lot of people to coordinate. You sure about this intel? Positive, she replied without hesitation. The assistant I mentioned, he's a specialist in analyzing quirks and behaviors. Between his notes and my field recon, this is solid. An assistant, huh? I asked, smirking slightly despite the seriousness of the situation. Didn't think you were the teamwork type, copycat. Her tone sharpened. This isn't about teamwork. It's about stopping an attack that could cost hundreds of lives. Focus, Hawks. I chuckled softly, adjusting my trajectory. All right. What do we know about the culprits? Most of them are using quirks to hide or manipulate the environment, she explained. One has a mimicry quirk. They can replicate the voices of nearby civilians, likely to cause panic during the attack. Another can create small-scale shockwaves, which they'll probably use to detonate the bombs. The others are mostly muscle and distractions, but don't underestimate them. I whistled low. You really did your homework. And this assistant of yours, what's his story? There was a brief pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was a little softer. He's new to this kind of work, but his ability to break down quirks and tactics is unmatched. He's the reason we've got this much intel already. Huh, I said, my curiosity piqued. You sure know how to pick 'em, copycat. Less talking, more flying, she shot back. You've got less than 10 minutes to get there before it's too late. Roger that, I said, diving toward the shopping district. As I soared closer, her voice came through again. When you get there, focus on the group near the main plaza. They're carrying the primary explosives. The others are scattered to distract law enforcement and keep heroes occupied. If you take them out quickly, the rest should fall apart. Understood, I replied, my feathers bristling in anticipation. Keep the intel coming, copycat. Let's save some lives tonight. Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of determination that mirrored my own. We will. With that, I focused on the mission ahead, my mind sharp and ready. Rimuru's intel had never steered me wrong before, and with her mysterious assistant in the mix, I felt like we might just have the edge we needed. Time to get to work. I landed on a nearby rooftop overlooking the busy shopping district. The area was bustling, filled with people unaware of the impending danger. My earpiece buzzed again as I scanned the crowd. Copycat here, Rimuru said. The plaza is ground zero. There's a cluster of suspicious activity near the west fountain. 4 of the culprits are there. One of them is the mimic with the voice replicating quirk. I zeroed in on the fountain and spotted a group of people standing too casually for comfort. Their movements were subtle but coordinated, their eyes darting around as if waiting for a signal. Got him, I murmured. Any idea where the others are? 2 near the eastern food court, she replied. They're setting up small charges meant to herd people toward the plaza. 3 are by the north entrance, likely backup for an escape route. The remaining 4 are blending into the crowd around the plaza. I smirked. 13 people, multiple locations, and explosives. They really went all out for this one, huh? It's why we're here, Rimuru said, her tone clipped. Start with the ones at the fountain. Disabling the mimic will disrupt their ability to coordinate. I'll guide you to the rest after. Understood, I said, unfurling my wings and gliding silently toward the fountain. I perched above the fountain, my feathers already primed and ready. The group below continued their charade, one of them, the mimic, judging by his subtle movements, speaking into a small communicator hidden in his sleeve. His voice shifted seamlessly, mimicking the tone of an elderly man giving directions, likely to throw off any suspicion. On my mark, Rimuru's voice came through my earpiece. The mimic is the one in the gray jacket. Go for him first. The others will scatter, but don't let them reach the crowd. Got it, I whispered. With a flick of my fingers, 2 feathers shot down, one slicing through the communicator in the mimic's sleeve and the other pinning his hand to the table he was leaning on. The mimic cried out, his illusion of calm shattering instantly. The other 3 members in the group snapped to attention, their cover blown. Targets scattered, I muttered as I dove down, landing between them and the crowd. Keep them contained, Rimuru instructed. Focus on incapacitating them quickly, don't give them time to regroup. One of the thugs lunged at me with a glowing baton, but I sidestepped easily, sending another feather to knock the weapon out of his hand. A second thug tried to flee toward the plaza, but I intercepted him with a sharp gust of wind, my feathers cutting off his path. 2 down, I said, catching my breath. The mimic's trying to crawl away, Rimuru warned. Take him out before he gets back to his communicator. I spun around and launched another feather, pinning the mimic's other hand to the ground. Not happening, buddy, I said with a grin. The last thug growled and raised his hands, emitting a faint crackling sound. Shockwave guy, I muttered, bracing myself as a pulse of energy rippled toward me. Watch your footing, Rimuru barked. I leapt into the air just as the shockwave hit, using my wings to stay aloft. A second later, 2 of my feathers shot down, knocking the thug off balance and sending him sprawling. All 4 down, I reported, surveying the scene. Good, Rimuru said. Now move to the Eastern Food Court. The 2 there are about to set their charges. On it, I said, taking to the skies once more. The rest of the mission played out with precision, thanks to Rimuru's flawless guidance. Every move I made was backed by her intel, and by the time the authorities arrived, all 13 culprits were neutralized, and the explosives had been secured. As I perched on a lamppost overlooking the now secured plaza, I tapped my earpiece. Mission accomplished. No casualties, no explosions. Nice work, copycat. Nice work yourself, she replied, her voice tinged with satisfaction. Looks like we make a pretty good team. I chuckled. Yeah, we do. Let your assistant know their notes came in handy, too. I will, she said, her tone softening slightly. They'll be glad to hear it. As the night settled back into an uneasy calm, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Rimuru and I had stopped something big tonight, and with her mysterious assistant in the mix, our odds of staying ahead of the villains had just gotten a whole lot better. All for one, you're not winning this one, I thought. All for one Pav. The dimly lit chamber was quiet, save for the faint hum of machinery surrounding me. Reports from my agents filtered through my network, a steady stream of failures that left a bitter taste in my mouth. Hawks. Time and again, that insufferable bird had disrupted my plans, his precision and timing far too calculated to be mere coincidence. It was almost as if someone was feeding him information, guiding him step by step to dismantle my operations. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers steepled before me as I reviewed the most recent failure, the shopping district mission. 13 agents, all neutralized before the first explosion could even be triggered. Hawks had struck with surgical accuracy, knowing exactly where to go and whom to target. It was uncanny. Who's helping you, Hawks? I murmured, my voice low but dripping with curiosity. My mind drifted, piecing together fragments of information. Hawks wasn't operating alone, that much was certain. Someone was guiding him, someone with a mind sharp enough to anticipate my strategies. A quiet laugh escaped me. How fascinating. And then, like a flicker of lightning in a darkened sky, the pieces began to align. The precision. The strategy. The adaptability. It felt familiar. I tilted my head, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. Could it be Rimuru? She'd been clever enough to elude my grasp for years, always staying just out of reach. I'd trained her to be resourceful, to think 10 steps ahead of her enemies. And now, it seemed, she was putting those lessons to use, against me. Hawk's recent successes have your fingerprints all over them, my dear, I said softly, a note of amusement threading through my tone. But why? What's your endgame? I closed my eyes, considering my next move. If Rimuru was working with Hawks, it wasn't out of loyalty to the hero system. No, she had no love for their rules or their ideals. This was personal. She was trying to undo me. The thought sent a thrill through me, equal parts pride and irritation. My own creation, my own flesh and blood, turning against me with such skill and determination. But she was making a mistake. You can't hide forever, Rimuru, I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. Every step you take brings you closer to me. And when the time comes, you'll realize that no matter how far you run, you'll always belong to me. I smiled, leaning forward as I began to formulate a plan. If Rimuru wanted to play this game, so be it. I'd let her think she was winning, let her think she had the upper hand. And when the time was right, I'd remind her who she was, and who truly held the strings. All for one POV. As I tapped my fingers against the polished surface of my desk, the dim light from the monitors cast long shadows across the room. Each flickering screen displayed failures that could no longer be ignored. Hawks was a formidable adversary, but his sudden streak of precision was not his alone. No, Rimuru was behind this. The realization sent a mixture of pride and irritation coursing through me. She had learned well, better than I could have hoped. Her strategic mind, her ability to anticipate and adapt, it was all sharpened under my care. But now, she dared to use those very skills against me. Fascinating. Bold. But foolish. I turned my attention to the reports, sifting through the details like pieces of a puzzle. Hawk's movements were too targeted, his timing too perfect. It was no coincidence that my plans began unraveling the moment my agents reported faint whispers of a figure operating in the shadows alongside him. Rimuru, I said, my voice smooth and laced with amusement. You've always had a knack for meddling where you don't belong. But her presence meant she wasn't hiding anymore. She'd surfaced, likely out of desperation, and in doing so, she'd left breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs can be followed. I pressed a button on the console in front of me. A holographic screen appeared, displaying a list of my operatives still in play. Each name was a pawn, but pawns were necessary in any game. Overseer, I called, my voice reverberating in the silent chamber. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, their silhouette stiff and obedient. Yes, my lord. I have a task for you, I said, leaning back in my chair. Rimuru is alive, active, and interfering. I want you to follow Hawk's movements. Track every mission he undertakes, every success he achieves. There will be traces of her there. Find them. Yes, my lord, Overseer said with a low bow. I smiled, the pieces of the game beginning to align in my mind. And once you find her, I continued, my voice soft but menacing, bring her to me. Unharmed. I want her to see just how futile her efforts are. To understand that no matter how far she runs, she'll always be part of me. Overseer nodded and disappeared into the darkness without another word. I turned back to the monitors, my fingers steepled as I considered the next move. Rimuru was clever, but she was also predictable in one way, she would never stop fighting against me. That resolve, while admirable, would also be her undoing. You've drawn Hawks into your game, I murmured, my smile widening. But you've made one critical mistake, my dear. I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing at the screen displaying Hawk's latest victory. You've made it personal. The game had begun in earnest now, and I was more than willing to play. After all, no one knew Rimuru Tempest better than I did. Hawk's POV. The city was quiet tonight, the kind of eerie calm that always set me on edge. I soared over the rooftops, my wings slicing through the cool air as I scanned the streets below. The last few missions had gone smoothly, too smoothly, and something told me it wouldn't last. Sure enough, my earpiece buzzed. Copycat here, Rimuru's voice came through, her usual calm tone carrying an edge of urgency. Go ahead, I said, banking left to land on a nearby rooftop. What's the situation? There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was lower, almost hesitant. My connection to you has been compromised by All for One. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Compromised? What do you mean? How does he know? I don't know how yet, she admitted, her voice clipped. But it's clear he's noticed my involvement. He's started tracking your movements, using you to try and find me. This isn't just a suspicion anymore, Hawks. It's a fact. I clenched my fists, my feathers bristling with frustration. So what do we do? If he's onto you, that puts you in danger. Exactly, she said, her tone sharpening. That's why I'm cutting off regular contact. Don't make any attempts to reach me unless it's absolutely necessary. If we keep working too closely, he'll use it against both of us. I leaned against the ledge, trying to process what she was saying. Cutting off contact was the last thing I wanted. It was her intel that had been keeping me ahead of the game. But if All for One really was closing in on her. I don't like this, I said finally, my voice low. If he knows about you, going dark might not be enough to keep you safe. You need backup. I don't need backup, she snapped, then softened slightly. I just need to stay ahead of him. You've got your missions, Hawks, and I've got mine. Splitting up is the best move right now. Her logic was sound, but it didn't sit right with me. What about your assistant? I asked, grasping at straws. Can they keep you safe? There was a brief pause before she answered. He doesn't know the full extent of what's happening. And I'm keeping it that way, for his sake. He's not ready for this kind of fight. I gritted my teeth, my frustration bubbling over. You're taking too much on yourself, Rimuru. You can't fight this alone. I've been fighting this alone for years, she said, her voice quiet but firm. And I've survived this long. I'll be fine, Hawks. The line went silent for a moment, and I could almost feel the weight of her words pressing against me. This isn't goodbye, she said finally. But until things settle down, we need to stay apart. Don't worry, I'll still be watching your back from a distance. Just don't try to reach me unless it's an emergency. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest refusing to ease. You're too damn stubborn for your own good, you know that. She chuckled softly, a sound that carried both warmth and sadness. Takes one to know one. And just like that, the line went dead. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the city lights. I hated the idea of being cut off from her, but I knew she was right. If All for One was targeting her through me, staying connected would only make things worse. Stay safe, Rimuru, I murmured, spreading my wings and taking to the sky. The weight of her absence settled heavily on my shoulders as I flew, but I knew one thing for certain, I wasn't going to let All for One win. Not this time. All for One POV. The chamber was dim, illuminated only by the faint glow of my monitors. Each screen displayed a piece of the puzzle, intercepted transmissions, agent reports, and the aftermath of Hawk's recent successes. My agents had been meticulous, combing through every detail. And now, they'd brought me the one thing I needed, a name. Rimuru, I said softly, tasting the word as if it held a secret flavor. The report lay before me, delivered by one of my more competent underlings. Hawks had been overheard severing a partnership with someone by that name, citing the need for distance due to compromised security. A reasonable move, but one that only confirmed my suspicions. A low chuckle escaped my lips. So, you've finally surfaced, my dear. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers steepled as I processed the information. Rimuru Tempest. My daughter. The one I'd molded into a weapon, a mind sharper than any blade. She was supposed to be mine, an extension of my will. Yet here she was, aligning herself with Hawks, the very enemy who'd been dismantling my plans piece by piece. How poetic, I mused. The daughter of All for One working with the wings of the hero world. It was almost laughable. Almost. I turned to the figure standing silently nearby, Overseer, one of my more trusted operatives. What else have you found? Overseer stepped forward, bowing slightly. We've confirmed that Hawk's recent successes are tied to Rimuru's intel. She's been operating under the alias, Copycat, and appears to possess extensive knowledge of our network. However, her decision to sever ties indicates an awareness of your pursuit. She's always been clever, I murmured, a note of pride threading through my voice despite the circumstances. But cleverness alone won't save her. Overseer hesitated, then added, there is one more detail, my lord. Rimuru is not working alone. She has an assistant, someone young, inexperienced, but surprisingly insightful. We've yet to identify them. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. An assistant. Interesting. Tell me more. Reports suggest this individual has a knack for analyzing quirks and strategies, providing valuable support to Rimuru's operations. However, their identity remains unknown. I smirked, the pieces falling into place. Someone inexperienced, yet capable of assisting Rimuru on such a level. It had to be someone new, someone ambitious, someone who didn't yet understand the stakes. It seems Rimuru has found herself an apprentice, I said, my tone laced with amusement. How quaint. Overseer remained silent, awaiting my command. Double the surveillance on Hawks, I ordered, my voice turning cold. And expand the search for Rimuru. She thinks she's hidden, but she's left a trail, one that we'll follow to its end. Yes, my lord, Overseer said, bowing deeply before disappearing into the shadows. Alone once more, I turned my attention back to the monitors. Rimuru, I said softly, a faint smile tugging at my lips. You've grown bold, but you're playing a dangerous game. Did you think I wouldn't recognize your hand in this? Did you think you could hide from me forever? My gaze hardened as I leaned forward, the glow of the monitors reflecting in my eyes. You may have severed your ties with Hawks, but it won't save you. I will find you, and when I do, you'll remember exactly who you belong to. The room fell silent as I began to plan my next move, the thrill of the hunt rekindling the fire inside me. The game was far from over. And this time, I would win. Izuku Pav. Rimuru set her phone down with a soft sigh, her golden eyes reflecting the faint glow of the desk lamp. I'd been sitting across from her, flipping through my notebook nervously while she handled what seemed like an important call. But now, the air in the room felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. She leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her silver hair. Knowing too much really is the most powerful weapon, she muttered, almost to herself. I frowned, setting my notebook down. Rimuru, is everything okay? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen before, hesitation. Thanks for the assistance, Izuku, she said quietly. You helped a lot. More than you realize. Her words sent a small rush of pride through me, but the way she said it made my chest tighten. But, she continued, her tone soft but firm, I can't let you help again. Not directly. What? I asked, my voice rising. Why not? Did I do something wrong? No, it's not that, she said quickly, shaking her head. You were amazing, Izuku. Your analysis, your insights, they made all the difference. Then why? Because the risks have skyrocketed, she cut in, her golden eyes locking onto mine. The villains are on my trail now. All for one's people aren't just watching Hawks anymore, they're looking for me. If they figure out you're connected to me, they'll come for you too. And I can't let that happen. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd known she was dealing with dangerous people, but hearing it laid out so plainly made it feel all too real. But Rimuru, I said, my voice trembling, you're dealing with this alone. You can't keep carrying all of this by yourself. Let me help. She gave me a small, sad smile. I appreciate that, Izuku. I really do. But laying low is my best chance at staying ahead of them. And if you're seen helping me, it puts both of us in even more danger. I clenched my fists, frustration bubbling up inside me. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and do nothing while you're out there risking everything. You keep being who you are, she said simply. Focus on your training, your studies, on becoming the hero I know you can be. That's how you'll help me. Her words didn't feel like enough, but the determination in her gaze left no room for argument. How long will you be gone? I asked softly. She hesitated, then looked away. I don't know. As long as it takes. The silence between us felt heavy, filled with words neither of us could say. Finally, she stood up, grabbing her jacket. I'll keep in touch when I can, she said, her voice steady. But don't try to contact me. It's safer that way. I nodded reluctantly, my heart sinking. Rimuru, be careful. She paused at the door, looking back at me with a faint smile. You too, Izuku. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. With that, she was gone, leaving me alone in the quiet room. I sat there for a long time, staring at my notebook but unable to focus. Rimuru had always seemed invincible to me, but now I realized just how much she was carrying, and how dangerous her world really was. I'll keep working, Rimuru, I thought, clutching my notebook tightly. And one day, I'll be strong enough to stand beside you, no matter what we're facing.